Hey, what's going on everyone? It's Gator92 here, and in today's video, I'd like to talk about some of the things I'd like to see in the next Halo, and kind of how I feel that Halo has lost its way and what made it unique. So to start out, I kind of want to bring up the whole sprint versus no sprint talk that's kind of been going around with Halo recently. That's kind of what helped push me to finally make this video. So it's an idea I've always had. And the drama from Shyway's recent video and everything that kind of erupted from that, that was finally my motivation to put my thoughts out there. So with that being said, I don't believe that there should be any kind of sprinting or sliding mechanic, as it is not inherently Halo. I prefer the guns always up and ready style of gameplay that we had with Halo 1, 2, and 3. And for the most part, Reach, as sprint and some of the other abilities were just that. They were abilities you picked up, and those are the only times when your gun was never at the ready. So I feel like that's a bit of a balance there. You know, if you're using an ability, you can't use your gun, or even a piece of equipment. And when it came to Halo Reach in general, that was probably my least favorite Bungie game. I didn't really like Armor Lock or Jetpack in those games. I felt like they kind of were lame and allowed people to do a lot of stupid things that kind of broke the game and took away some of my enjoyment. Sprint was okay in there. It was an ability with a cooldown timer. My issue when it comes to Sprint is it being a default mechanic or ability that everybody has. And I do not believe that we should have that. Especially when we take a look at some of the side effects, like when you add sliding, and then now we have the G sliding in Halo Infinite. That's not fun to me. I think it currently breaks the pacing of some of the maps that were built, being able to just zoom back and forth like people do. And I don't think it's even really a skill gap. You know, it's just extra actions per minute. It literally takes 2 minutes for anyone to go into multiplayer, boot up a custom game, and just learn the timing of hitting the G slides and the super slides and all that. And then after that, it's just going to all the different maps and finding all the spots that you can do the slides off of. And then by playing and matchmaking, you kind of learn when you should and should not. And I have learned how to do everything. You know, I'm currently sitting at 16-15 Onyx and Ranked Arena. So not super high end, but like I'm up there, so I feel like that gives me a little bit of credibility to talk about my opinion and whatnot when it comes to Halo's gameplay. And a big thing that I notice with all the how it breaks pacing is when you go from lower lobbies to higher lobbies, the game gets insanely fast. Players of lower lobbies tend to play more like classic Halo. They don't really sprint much, they don't slide. That's kind of more the Halo I personally like to play. But then when you start getting higher up there, everyone's sliding around, sprinting, just not very fun. And when I go to play with friends that are of lower skill than myself, they always complain. They don't like the game, it gets harder, you know, because everyone's playing faster, doing all the stuff that you see in your higher lobbies. And so that takes away some of the enjoyment from being able to play with friends. Something else I'd like to see go away with all this advanced movement is clamber. We don't need clamber in Halo. It should just be either we have to hit a jump or some sort of skill jump. Clamber is something that was being mimicked from Call of Duty and some other more modern titles, and clamber was never in Halo before. And I don't think it really belongs. And last thing on my docket when it comes to any kind of extra movement is the instant strafe. I think we need to go back to the classic strafe with the inertia. This instant strafe allows for jiggle peeking, which is not really a fun mechanic to play around or play against. It's kind of cheesy, corny. I guess pick your best word for it. That's how I would describe it. You know, we tried sprint and some of this advanced movement for the past 3 games under Halo Studios, and things have not been getting any better. They only seem to get worse. they can't seem to maintain a player base, especially when it comes to like the multiplayer side of things. And Halo has kind of been on a downward trend, I would say, even since Reach, when they made a lot of changes there with the gameplay with abilities. So I think, it's kind of shows that like the formula that was there before seems to work a lot better in Halo's favor than all of this trend chasing and modernizing that Halo Studios and Microsoft have pretty much been trying to push. Next thing I'd like to touch on is Halo's aiming. Currently we have a system in Infinite with aim assist that is really strong, and I think that is a little bit detrimental and not very fun to play around. I would rather see Halo go back to having the magnetism like we pretty much had in every game up to Halo 5 before Infinite. I mean, the games back then didn't hold your hand for aiming like Infinite does. That kind of pushes the player to do more of the aiming themselves, be a little bit more manual. And I think that would create more of a skill gap for people to master the weapons and everything that are in the game and just mastering the sandbox in general. As things currently stand, the game does a little too much hand-holding, and pretty much anybody can shoot, once you learn to just let your strafe do pretty much the majority of your aiming now. To move on to the next thing, I would say we need better map variety for multiplayer. Over the years, Halo has had a lot of memorable maps, many of which come from the Bungie era, and I think a combination of what some of those bring back nostalgia, and they were just a lot of fun to play on back in the day. They weren't built with a focus on being competitive, because Bungie never had a focus on being competitive. They just wanted to make a fun, balanced multiplayer. The competitive side of things came from the players themselves with changing settings and weapons on the map and whatnot. But as of right now, Halo Studios doesn't really make a lot of maps to be fun. They kind of make them to be competitive. And that leads to a lot of 3-lane maps. That leads to a lot of symmetrical maps. And there's not anything wrong with symmetrical maps, as they have their place with objective modes like Capture the Flag and Assault, things of that nature. But the asymmetrical maps tend to kind of fall into a trap nowadays with just being that 3 lanes. They're not really unique, and they tend to play the same-ish. I would love to see some maps start coming out and have gimmicks on them again, like some of them used to. Even if they're just fun things, they don't even impact gameplay. Things like if I play on cold storage, we got the eye that follows and tracks when you're in the one room by the rocket launcher. Things like shooting the rocks down in waterworks on Halo 2 to fall on people or vehicles. Just fun little gimmicks. They don't even have to be gameplay related. Assembly in Halo 3 had scarabs. You were in a factory, scarabs were being built above you. Maps used to just be cool and fun to play on and just sometimes even just look at. And just load up into a custom game and just kind of walk around the map. They used to be a lot more than just, again, I'm going to say the word a lot when it comes to talking about multiplayer, but competitive. That word just kind of needs to get thrown out, and the game just needs to be made fun first, and then competitive can come from the player second. We used to have a lot of maps that had elevators, lifts, grav lifts, man cannons. We don't get any of those anymore. With the advanced movement, a lot of those things have kind of gone away because people can get across the maps quicker. Before, we had the teleporters and these extra things to kind of add some creativity to the map and put things in a place for people to kind of get around a bit quicker, especially in the big team battle maps. And I feel like there's a formula there that's been lost. And I would say that's another thing. Big team battle has been impacted quite a bit, in my opinion. There's too much in the sandbox to really counteract vehicles, even though a lot of people don't take advantage of them in multiplayer. They kind of run around a little brain dead. Just people get around faster on foot, don't really touch vehicles, they kind of ignore them because they can get to the action almost as quickly. Vehicles are kind of a hindrance. There's so many ways to stun lock them and damage them now, especially if you're playing against a smart, coordinated team. And grapple. As cool as Grapple is, I feel it's ruined vehicles in Big Team Battle. Being able to just hijack a vehicle and run around with that piece of equipment is just not as fun, and it's kind of cheap that's a quick way to hijack a vehicle. All you gotta do is just kind of hide around a corner or just run around and hope someone with a Banshee or a Wasp gets low enough, or you can grapple over to them and grab it. It's cool the first couple times, but when it's something that everyone starts actively doing, and it happens a lot, I feel like it takes away from the chance or ability of a player to make an impact with that vehicle, and ultimately the value. And last but not least, when it comes to the multiplayer side of things, one of the things that hurts Halo the most in recent entries is the lack in general of just fun in the games being social experiences. Games used to be made for people to have fun times with their friends, and now a lot of these companies are making them into these experiences where they're competitive because everyone wants to have an esports scene. They want to have their skins and have the players show them off while they're playing so that people are enticed to go and buy the same thing that their favorite players have. I mean, games are just like losing the fun aspect. Everything is just so hyper driven towards profits, towards competitive, and not just letting people have fun with their friends. Like, I have been playing Halo since Combat Evolved, and all my friends that I have grown up with, they really slowed down and stopped playing Halo around Halo 4, and even more so with 5 and Infinite. Like, it's not Halo to them, it's not fun, and I know that's true for a lot of people out there. I don't think Halo Infinite's failure was necessarily just a lack of content and being a very buggy game and broken. While that adds to it, I think it's just the lack of it being an experience that people could share with their friends. I mean, if we take a look at things, they went and changed the weapon sandbox and got rid of weapons because they didn't want weapons that were similar in nature to each other, like the carbine, because it was too much like the battle rifle or the DMR or the bandit, whatever you want to call it now. I always loved the carbine. I always thought it was a cool weapon. I don't think it hurts the game to have weapons that function similarly, where one is more of an alien nature and then one is more, UNSC human, faction related, whatever. We're just missing out on a cool variety of weapons that we used to have that we no longer have. All for the sake of trying to make weapons that are different and don't share the same role. I think a lot of what Halo has become has pushed away a lot of the more casual fan base that we used to have, and the players that used to keep a healthy matchmaking ecosystem. If Halo just sticks to its strengths and what made it great in the past, I don't see any reason why Halo couldn't be successful in the future, like it used to be before. I mean, look at a game like Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike doesn't get regular content updates, hasn't really for quite some time, and they still pull in almost 700,000 players a day. Like, Halo maybe can't get back to that, but Halo could easily be doing much bigger numbers than it has been the last 10-15 years. Like, we have major drop-offs in players within like the first month or two in every game, and I am immediately playing the same people over and over and over for the next few years to come till the next entry. So, the current formula that has been going on with Halo since 343, Halo Studios, whatever you want to call them, has taken over, not done Halo any favors, and neither has any of the input that Microsoft themselves have put in and forced upon Halo. And that includes the campaign. I liked Halo Infinite's campaign. It was fun. Open world is not it. Maybe if they try something different, more ODST style or some kind of side game, where they experiment a little bit more and maybe flesh that idea out with something different, I could see it working. But when it comes to the mainline games, I would prefer to just stick to a regular, more linear experience. The open world kind of detracts from that story in Halo Infinite. You're kind of bouncing around, and when you get to the main parts of the story, it just kind of feels disjointed. It's not very fleshed out. I know that there seem to have been some issues with getting the campaign out and into a proper spot to be able to ship. but the pacing wasn't really there. It was still a fun campaign, definitely a lot leagues better, I would say, than Halo 5. But even like the characters like Escharum and Jega that were kind of like the villains for this game, they weren't very fleshed out. Even in the books leading up to Infinite, Escharum wasn't like super fleshed out, but he was talked up to be like this big character, you know, the guy that Atriox learned under a little bit. But I feel like they kind of did him dirty. They kind of gave him and Jega that Boba Fett treatment. Like, they were on screen a little bit, they talked a little bit, but they were mostly just there, they looked cool. They didn't really get that chance to shine like maybe Tartarus or the Prophet of Truth did in Halo 2 and 3. You know, they had some more time, some more on-screen, you know, some more voice lines that they said, even if they weren't directly on-screen themselves. There was something in the background playing. And just all these other things that just led to kind of building up to that moment when we finally fight them, and it feels more impactful. So with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the video up here. This is my first time really like doing a bit of a longer video like this and put my thoughts out there. Maybe they weren't as fleshed out as they could be, but again, you know, I hopefully do more of these or videos like this, and I'll get better with that over time. So of course, you know, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section. If you guys like this video, feel free to share it, leave a like, and subscribe if you want more content like this. I am still learning here as I go on YouTube, so my quality will get better over time. And with that, I will see you guys on the next one.